Daytona Beach has a long history of racing and had the only combined beach road course in the USA. The hard-packed sand and warm weather made racing very popular in Daytona. In the late 1950s, the racing moved from the beach to the newly constructed Daytona International Speedway and has become one of the best racetracks in the world. Please join me as I visit Daytona International Speedway.
My name's Corey Tucksher. I'm from Appleton, Wisconsin, and right now I'm just cleaning up my bike, finished prepping it for the heat race. It's in about an hour here, and just trying to calm my nerves a little bit. This bike actually only weighs 200 pounds. It puts out somewhere between 80 and 85 horsepower. I guess if you wanted to compare it to like a street bike, it's 250 cc's, and it will run a quarter mile in about somewhere in the mid 9-second range. For like street bike riders that open up your magazines and see that the 600s will run like 13 seconds or whatever. This is a 250 that'll run somewhere in the 9s. I guess the racing itself is very competitive. It's nerve-wracking, scary sometimes. The first time I rode this particular motorcycle, I was just shaking. In fact, just about every time I get off of the bike, I'm shaking. A lot of people think it's come down here and drink a lot and wander around Main Street. In fact, I was at a Burger King the other night getting dinner, and a guy asked me what I was doing here, and I told him I was racing, and he didn't even know there was a race going on. He asked me where it was and what we were racing. I explained to him that was motorcycle racing and stuff, and he was just kind of amazed. It's like the Super Bowl of motorcycle road racing going on right here, and nobody even knows about it.
Yeah, Bike Week in Daytona is a pretty unique sort of event. I mean, we've been travelling here from New Zealand, for example, for the last 8 years. There's people from all around the world. Pulls in about 600,000 people. There's guys been coming here for 10 years that don't even know the racing's on because they're too busy cruising down Main Street on their pig iron and so forth. And they notice the accent, where are you from? We're from New Zealand. What are you here for? The races. There ain't no races here.
I think last year the top 600s were running 164 miles an hour on the banking here, which is quite incredible for a street legal bike of 600cc. The bike weighs about 400 pounds. It's probably the most popular class in the United States, the 600 class, because they're easy to build and to maintain. They're very reliable. Before you get on the bike, you're really nervous. You start thinking about it, you go to the bathroom a bunch of times, like, oh God, this could be the last time you're gonna ride, you worry about crashing and stuff, but not really. You start thinking about parts of the track that maybe you wish you were better at, which here is turn 1 and going for the dog leg. It's very difficult because you're at top speed. The feeling you get is just so incredible. I guess you could say it's better than sex, I don't know. I like that too.
I began covering motorcycle races in 1970 and continued to do so through 1989 when I came to the Speedway. And I think my journalist's eye takes over, even though I work for the racetrack, in that I look at all the racers as each one having a story. And I always look for the human aspect. I never was really mechanically inclined. Yes, I know what makes the bikes work and the rest of it, but I'm much more interested in the will to win, the will to succeed, the will to work hard, the will to ride, the ability to believe that they can ride and win against all odds. And that's what really makes up the fields. True, there are some riders whose odds are better than others, and those are the ones that are sponsored by the factories. And they will probably win out in the end. But there's always, every once in a while, a Cinderella story, a guy who has not necessarily inferior equipment, but has really worked to get the most out of what he has. Finishes very well, makes some money, makes a very good story, and maybe the next year he comes back and he's one of those guys on a factory bike. That's the dream of everybody.
I'm a privateer. I'm one of the guys that kind of supports, it fills out the field, I guess you would say. We don't have the capabilities or the equipment that the factory riders have, but if it wasn't for the privateer, you wouldn't have enough bikes to have a really interesting race. So there's a lot of us here, and we'll be having our own races among ourselves while the factory guys are having it, having the out front run for themselves. So. If you can imagine coming down the straightaway and crossing the start-finish line. And of course, at that point, we have about 300 more yards to go, and then we enter what is known as the infield of the road course section. And this requires extremely heavy braking to slow the motorcycle down to a speed that you can negotiate the turn at. At this point, you actually have crawled off the motorcycle to the point to where most of your body weight and most of your rear end is about 75% off the seat and leaned out over the bike, to the point where your knee actually drags on the ground. We have knee pucks on our leathers. This gives us a feel for when we have the proper bank angle for that corner. You get used to where you place your knee when you start into the corner. And as you feel your knees start to hit the asphalt, you pick it up just a little bit, and then you hold the bike at that point and you begin your acceleration out. The way my 600 Super Sport bike is geared, I will be in 6th gear right around the time that I roll completely out of the bank and I'm down the straightaway. And the slowest you're going through that chicane is around 70 miles an hour at any point. Everything is angling and turning and banking. So it's a very busy time. You actually go down 3 gears. I go from 6th to 3rd gear. Take the bike up to 13,000 revs in each gear, and I'm back up into 6th. I reach 6th gear approximately 3/4 of the way through turn 3, which is the high bank of the banking, and then it's just flat out all the way back down across the start-finish line. Probably one of the neatest things about motorsports, and one of the things that keeps me involved, is the camaraderie among the riders and the teams and the crews and the people that you meet over the years. And they're very fascinating individuals, the most fascinating individuals that you'll ever have a chance to meet in your life, because they do such a fascinating and unusual sport. I don't know how to explain it, they're just different. They're just special people. Yeah, it is an obsession, no question about it. I'm 58 years old, and I've been in motorsports all my life. And, I can't imagine being out of it, although I know sooner or later I'll get too old to ride, but it certainly hasn't happened yet, so we're still out there.
All right, coming up this afternoon.
These are tire warmers. Heat up the tires before the race, give it better traction the first corner.
It's a radio transponder. It's for all the superbike class, so they can keep our exact timing and keep track of the bikes on the track and who's out there. In case somebody crashes on the far side, they know the bike's gone down. Because they can go from looking nice and pretty like that to destroyed in relatively a short time. That's what happened to Chip. He broke his collarbone in Phoenix, tried to race. That was 3 weeks ago. Tried to race this weekend. Just came off the banking. The turbulence was too much, went in the corner, too much pressure, ended up tossing it away again. So he's out for another 3 to 4 weeks at least, and hopefully he'll be back in time for Laguna Seca. It doesn't take long, a split second can be a victory or disaster, so he's back at the hotel now. So hopefully that'll be our only crash. We had Ken, number 37, he won 4 out of 7 races this weekend, new Daytona record. But the 5th race, he crashed too into another rider. So it doesn't really matter how good you are or how bad you are. Chances are out there you're going to go down.
Basically in the heat race, was running 16th, and on the last lap it let go right at start finish, and it was pretty hairy. It started to go, and I grabbed the clutch too late, and it locked the back wheel and almost pitched me off right at start finish at probably 150 miles an hour. So luckily now we just get to go home and do a lot of work, put a new crank and new cylinders and everything else on. We'll be back tomorrow.
What we have here is a Britain V1000. This is one of 8 bikes built in the last 5 years. The original design was by a guy called John Britton, who lived in New Zealand. It was developed with a team. You'll see it's got a lot of carbon fibre, full carbon fibre rim, carbon fibre girder front end. It's a 985cc 8-valve twin injected. All the castings, all the components are made within our workshop in Christchurch, New Zealand. The other interesting features of the bike is that it has no chassis to speak of. It just has 2 small carbon fibre bones which run between the rear and the front head, and then link up into here in the steering head. Has a very, very small cooling capacity, only 1.7 litres, with a radiator which sits directly under the seat here, with all your airflow passing through the internals of this tank. As the bike moves forward, you get a low pressure area behind the engine, and with the heat that's created from the engine, you get a very strong dragging effect as well as the ramming effect of the air going in. That's quite a unique feature of the bike. It was recorded here in '94 with a top end speed of 188 miles an hour, and its top speed recorded back home through speed traps has been 310 kilometres for those of you who are on metric, so it's a pretty fast bike. It's very limited to where it can run. We run it in superbike classes back in New Zealand and some special Formula One open races, but it's not suited to any of the superbike classes because of the only 8 being built. You need substantially more. You need hundreds built to qualify and homologate for most of the main prestigious races in the world, but we bring it wherever we can and run it.